You're Norma Desmond. Used to be in silent pictures, used to be big.
I am big. It's the pictures that got small.
My name is Eames Demetrios, and I'm the director of the Eames office. Our mission statement there is communicating, preserving, and extending Charles and Ray's work. Charles and Ray refers to my grandparents, Charles and Ray Eames. All the kids in my generation, there are about 5 of us, are involved in that work, but we all have our own passions and works as well. The photography was a really big, important part of Charles and Ray's journey, and the way they documented the places they went, the way they explored with the camera, the way they used the camera to capture things that would let them express an idea. So this exhibition here is based on a 3-screen slideshow. If you think about it, 3-screen slideshows are pretty unique. Charles and Ray certainly aren't the only people who've done them, but they're kind of unique in terms of that as an artistic, almost aesthetic product of their work. It's pretty unusual to have this multi-screen thing be so essential to them. And I think what they liked is that they could help you get an idea from a number of different directions all at the same time and create a kind of unique experience. And I think they evolved an understanding of the way to bring images together both spatially, have like a spatial collage and a collage in time. And that's what you see in these 3-screen slideshows. And as a kid, actually, we would see them all the time in their office. One of the things about 3-screen slideshows is they were very hard to put on. You actually needed 6 projectors so that you could dissolve. And it was like the SWAT team coming into a theater, assembling all these projectors and putting them in the right place. Now we're able to do something very, very similar in look on through digital projectors, and it's certainly a lot simpler. But these 3-screen slideshows were very important. I think it was also a way to use their imagery in a rich way to communicate some ideas. So, for example, they did one on India. They did one on the fish tanks they had at the office when they were doing the National Aquarium for the United States. And so it's been a part of their work that people really haven't seen. And so when the museum and the curator, Alexandra Midal, approached us, we were very excited. And so what you see here, what I think is very successful about this installation from my standpoint is that you have the pure Charles and Ray Eames experience. You have the 3-screen slideshow and the soundtrack that they intended, and you see it projected, not just on 3 monitors, not just on a single screen, so you're kind of but you're really seeing it. But at the same time, there's an interpretive component that's quite lovely, which is that they printed some of the images and mounted them on these walls that have a feeling of being the back of a film set. And it's quite dramatic, and it's actually very simple, but as we all know, sometimes those simple gestures are quite effective, and it lets you savor some of the images and also reinforces kind of the nature of the movie set's topic. One of the things that Charles said is that he learned more about architecture from watching Billy Wilder on a film set than he did from most architects. And I think that, so often when you look at Charles's work, or you hear him talk, or you hear Ray talk, the idea of structure is really important. Charles Ray once said that at all times, meaning like in all times in history, in all cultures, at all times, love and discipline have led to a beautiful environment and a good life. And discipline is another word for structure in a way. So what they were interested in is the structure that a film, that a director or a film crew used to create the light which we see on the screen. And I think that that's the feeling you get from this, both the slideshow and the exhibition.
Mr. Neff, why don't you drop by tomorrow evening around 8:30? He'll be in then.
Who?
My husband. You were anxious to talk to him, weren't you?
Yeah, I was, but I'm sort of getting over the idea, if you know what I mean.
There's a speed limit in this state, Mr. Neff. 45 miles an hour.
How fast is that going, officer?
I'd say around 90.
I've been a filmmaker and a storyteller for quite some time. And I mean, even when I was young, I was making films. But I like I said, I always think of myself as a kind of a storyteller. And where I am now with that is that I have an alternative universe called Chimerics there, and I go around the world installing markers and historic sites that honor events from a fictional world and our world. And it's, in a way, it's another kind of storytelling. And in fact, it has its own sort of cinematic qualities in the sense that when you read something, everyone in every culture that I've encountered so far likes to line up perpendicular to the text. So when I install this out in the world, I actually pretty confident of where they're going to be looking as the canvas they will impose that story on. So that's my work, and it's been a great adventure. And somebody asked me yesterday actually about how Charles and Ray influenced me, and I think it's really about this idea of pursuing. It always says it sometimes sounds it's a little bit corny. Sometimes people say pursue your passion because life is not quite that simple. But what they were really talking about is I think of it as surrendering to the journey, to do what you can on the path that you feel needs to be explored. Because as Charles said, when you do something like that, you can bring your whole self to bear. You can bring, whereas if you're doing something, well, if I make this thing, then it'll be a good career step, and or I'll make some money, and and those are all things that we have all done at some point in time. But at the same time, if those things don't work out, then then you're unsatisfied, because if you did it for the money, you don't get the money, then you're feeling bad. Whereas if you do it for the journey, even if it doesn't succeed, say, then you have that process and that place you went along. And this kind of circles back in my mind to this exhibition that we're at the Atom Museum. Before I came here, I was definitely familiar with the Atomium. In fact, I'd been to the Atomium before and was excited to go there. Now, I have perhaps an unusual pedigree in that regard. For one thing, Charles Ray actually did a film that showed at the 1958 Brussels Fair for IBM at the IBM Pavilion. So I was very aware of that World's Fair. Mm-hmm. I also do a lot of work with teaching people about scale. I think that scale is the new geography, and not understanding scale is a form of illiteracy. So you have to imagine that a 165 billion times, iron crystal molecule is pretty appealing to me. But it's an amazing building, and actually I spent some time in it yesterday, and it was fantastic. It's a very honest building in a way.
I wanna be kissed by you alone. I couldn't aspire to anything higher than to feel the desire to make you my own. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-doo-dee-dum.